It's my nerd world. Welcome to it. Depeche Mode, the podcast, and on this week's episode, Ghosts Again Remixes finally coming out. I've had a chance to listen to all of the tracks, and I will share with you my thoughts. Plus, we've got listener feedback to get to this week.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
I suppose I have listener feedback to get to every week, right? That's kind of a given at this point in time. Welcome to My Nerd World and Depeche Mode, the podcast. I'm your host, Jon Justice. Thanks once again for checking out another episode. I greatly appreciate it. As always, if you want to email TalkShowNerd at gmail.com or leave a comment on YouTube. Got to thank the global Depeche Mode group, the global fan group. Rob Rome did the drinking chat last week. Really had a great time. I think I spent almost 3 hours chatting and drinking. Got into some really interesting conversation. I know that Rob intends or has already gone and posted it. I haven't looked as of recording this episode this week. I haven't looked to see if Rob has gone and posted it up on YouTube on the global fan group. But he said that he would once he did some editing. But we did get into some really interesting discussions as it relates to the tour and the level of appropriateness when it comes to filming the shows. What do people do with the videos after they're done? Really went, and I really had a great time and meeting a lot of listeners to the show and new people as well. As I said last week during the drinking chat, and as I've said on the show, this entire experience around the release of Memento Mori has really been special. And reminds me so much of those many years ago when Music for the Masses and Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion, Ultra came out, where it was just a part of a huge part of my life, and being around friends and then breaking away from that over the course of a few decades, raising a family and, working through my career, and, not having Depeche Mode in my life, but not having, the group of individuals around you to enjoy the experience. And this time around, it's just been truly special. And the drinking chat last week was certainly another memorable moment during this time of new Depeche Mode as we wait for them to kick off their European tour and all the questions that come about with that. A changing of the stage. Are we going to get a new set list? One of the things we talked about last week as well was, how aware is the band of not the level of fandom, but the groups like we had on the drinking chat, and how many people would love to see them expand the set list beyond the chosen songs that they've been playing the last few tours. So hopefully you have a chance to check that out if it's available up on YouTube, and I'll let you know on the next episode, or if you follow me on at the My Nerd World on Twitter, or at Jon Justice on TikTok or Instagram. Also have the My Nerd World on Instagram as well. Before I give you my thoughts on Ghosts Again, I did get my hands on all 8 of the remixes, and I've had a chance to spend a little bit of time with them, so I'll share with you what I can. It's difficult when it comes to reviewing things like remixes, and I'll explain here in just a moment. I do want to say that I just went through my first experience of breaking away from listening to Memento Mori and returning to it again. Now, granted, it wasn't for a long period of time, but just over the course of the past 2 weeks, while I've been listening to certain tracks, I have been deviating and have gone back to listening to other music as well, as I typically do. Whereas the weeks since the release of the album and since I got the album, I had been almost exclusively listening to nothing but Memento Mori. So, having taken a break and going out and listening to music and then returning to the album in full, it was a unique experience. It wasn't all that dissimilar to going back and listening to an album that you haven't listened to in a long period of time. It wasn't that I gained any sort of new perspective on the album, but just taking a break, hearing different styles of music, and then returning to it, I found myself enjoying it just as much as I did before, and it's still sounding fresh and new. And I don't need to continue to make the comment of how special it appears that Memento Mori is, but taking a break from it and returning to it, I found myself gravitating towards some songs even more so that I hadn't before, particularly Caroline's Monkey and Always You, songs that I enjoyed, but listening to them this time around, they struck me in a different way, having taken probably the biggest break from those tracks. A few songs that I listened to quite regularly and had been over the course of the past 2 weeks had definitely been Ghosts Again. Ghosts Again is a daily listen for me. Don't Say You Love Me, People Are Good. And Don't Say You Love Me, that song continues to move up. Might be my second favorite on the album as it stands right now. So curious just your current experience with Memento Mori. You can always, again, email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube. All right, let's go ahead and get to my thoughts on the remixes, which will be officially released tomorrow as I'm recording Thursday. But like I said, I was able to get my hands on all of the tracks in full, and I wanted to share with you some of my thoughts. First off, let me say up front, these are not going to be very extensive reviews on these songs, simply because I've been so removed from dance music that I don't know what the lingo is anymore. I mean, the last time that I was sort of heavily listening to dance music was late 90s, early 2000s, and that was the last time that I was really sort of up on the lingo of what we're calling particular styles of music. So I would be describing some of these tracks as, drum and bass, even though I know that probably isn't in the vernacular anymore. So I will share with you just on a surface level my thoughts on these remixes. And when it comes to subjectivity, I mean, that definitely plays into remixes of Depeche Mode, in my opinion, more so than album tracks. I mean, that's already subjective. But when it comes to remixes, I mean, I think everybody is much more scattered in their views than they would be listening to actual tracks on the album. And I also want to say that I'm a bit of a, I don't even know what I want to call myself. I guess I could say purist. Like, today is May the 4th, right? So May the 4th be with you. For those of you that also love Star Wars as I do, I'll be recording my weekly podcast after I finish this one today, devoted to May the 4th, today being May the 4th, and it being Star Wars Day, doing that thing with my fingers because of the May the 4th be with you alliteration. But like with Star Wars, I'm much more of a canon guy than I am a Legends Expanded Universe guy. I like the stories that are told that are all linked together, and am not a big a fan of stories that don't have anything to do with the larger story, that are kind of off on their own. When it comes to Depeche Mode music, I'm not the biggest fan of remixes and covers because I much prefer the songs as the band intended. Like, if the band does a remix, that's a different story. But I always prefer the album version of, say, In Your Room over the Zephyr mix, or the remix that they do live for A Pain That I'm Used To. I like that remix, but I prefer the album version. I just kind of default because it's what the band originally intended. And I would mostly prefer them to do their own versions live, and it's fine that they don't. But so that kind of brings me to where the remixes are. I have a hard time getting into a lot of these remixes because I genuinely prefer just to have the band version. So let me get into some of these. We'll start off with the first one, the Misano remix, which I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names. But the Misano remix, it's a dance track. It's got an interesting breakdown in the middle of the track, similar to what we heard in that leaked Camel Fat remix. And I don't know. This is not one. The first two tracks on it, whether it's the Misano track or the Chris Liebing and Luke Slater track, they're not ones that I will probably ever go and listen to again, just because they're very repetitious. The Chris and Luke remix is a very, very fast, and the only way I could describe it would be like a drum and bass track with repetitive lyrics, not really playing out the chorus like they do in some of the other remixes. So the first two, the Misano and the Chris Liebing and Luke Slater mixes, are straight up dance tracks in my opinion. And with all of these, I definitely would love to hear from you, because I would be interested to get some insight for those that follow modern dance, electronic dance music, where these remixes sort of fall into what's popular as of right now, and perhaps some insight into why the band chose these particular ones, if apart from just how they sounded. The Miss Grit remix I did enjoy. This track gave me a 90s vibe. It wasn't necessarily a dance track. They do some vocal pitching on Dave's lyrics, on Dave's vocals, and they layer that on top of Dave's original vocals in the song that I quite enjoyed. So of the tracks that I would be listening to again, the Miss Grit track would definitely be one. The Rival Consoles remix is also very much the same way. Not a dance track, more of a true remix, reinterpretation. It's got a very floating, almost ethereal soundscape to it, and takes advantage of all the lyrics in the song. And I appreciate the remixes that do that very thing, that takes advantage of all the lyrics in the tracks themselves. The Matthew Herbert's Feelings mix is also a dance track. It gave me Trainspotting vibes, Underworld vibes, and again, I'm just referencing that which I can kind of pull from. I'm sure there's sort of an attachment to modern dance music that I'm not aware of, but that's the vibe that I got from it. The one that I was most looking forward to, and probably my favorite of the remixes, is the Divide or David Rossi Strings mix, and it is exactly as it's titled. It is a strings mix of Ghosts Again. I wouldn't say full orchestra. It sounds like there is some electronic manipulation of the strings themselves on the track, but of the ones that I was most looking forward to, it was that one, being that it's a strings mix, and I do appreciate to hear when the electronics are stripped away, and I quite liked it. Of all the tracks, that's probably the one that I would give repeat listens to. And then we have the Bergson's Shadow mix. Minimal throbbing dance track, fairly repetitive. Didn't really do anything for me. And then the Nick Cook Void. I think I wrote that down wrong. Hang on one second. Yeah, so the last two, the second to last track, the Bergsonist's Shadow remix. Again, that's sort of a minimal throbbing, repetitive dance track. And then the Nick Hulk Void mix. That one's kind of interesting. A bit of a dance track. It's mid-tempo, almost to Ghosts Again itself, where the other dance tracks were sped up. Had some scattered beats, but did take advantage of the full vocals of the track, which I also appreciated. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to say I'm disappointed. I had very low expectations. I would have loved to, and I mentioned this on last week's show, I would have loved to have had remixes in the way that we used to get them going back to the 80s, where we had extended mixes taking advantage of the existing music without altering it too much. I really do miss those days, and it was specifically the reason why I created that extended mix of Ghosts Again when the single came out. And it's one of the questions I probably would ask the band as to why they don't do that anymore. And I imagine it's probably because they feel they can reach a wider audience by giving a modern dance feel to these songs that they release to bring people to the album. That also raises the question of what are the intention of these remixes now, right? I mean, are they to bring new people to the record? Are they to get them played in clubs? And I suppose maybe I'm answering my own question. Maybe these tracks are specifically meant to be played in clubs in hopes of bringing more fans to Depeche Mode throughout the years, whereas the extended mixes, back when I used to go to the club, those were the ones that they used to play in the club. So this is where I'm limited again on my commentary because of my lack of knowledge as it relates to dance music, so I could really use some thoughts from you with regard to this. So by the time you hear this, you'll have heard the remixes, I'm sure. So what do you think? Again, talkshownerd@gmail.com or leave a comment up on YouTube. No B-sides. I think it's been pretty much solidified now that those 4 fully produced tracks that are out there will be released someday. We just don't know how yet, and I have no expectation of them landing on any subsequent singles. The other thing I wanted to add was, before we get into listener feedback, is the artwork for the remixes is just a shot, profile shot of Martin and Dave playing chess from the Ghosts Again video, and I really wish that we would have gotten more artwork. That's something that I know it's changed and it's kind of gone back and forth throughout the years when it comes to Anton Corbijn doing artwork for the band. But I would love to get some more specific artwork for the releases. Like I would have wanted something that Anton could have created that was fresh and new and not lifted from the video. And again, adding to the list of questions that I would have for the band would be, like, on those levels, there seems to be a lack of importance attached to those things now. And I wonder if it's because there's fewer and fewer selling of hard copies of these, right? And so, there's no big desire anymore to have Anton create further artwork. When they did the re-releases, the single re-releases that have come out, right, for vinyl, for all the singles, for all the albums, we had specific artwork created to that, which would lend a bit of evidence to my theory that because there's not a lot of physical copies of these going out, or if any, these remixes are coming out as a digital bundle. So maybe if they do decide to release them as a physical CD or vinyl, we will get some separate artwork. But perhaps that's probably the reason why we're not getting specific artwork. But I miss that. I love having more visual representation of the band apart from, as I said, just lifting a picture from the single or from the video for Ghosts Again and using that. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to some listener feedback this week. All right, first we go here to another podcaster. Hi, my name is Diane. I'm a fellow Depeche Mode fan at 45 years old. I have a podcast called Rock the Cash Bar, and it's comedians discussing songs and lyrics. My co-host and I are both ex-stand-up comedians. One day I'll tell my story of the one time that I did stand-up comedy. I was working with the guy who did stand-up before we got into radio together, and we ended up opening an improv, and it was my first time ever on stage doing stand-up, and I was terrified. Diane goes on to say, I'm mostly writing to say I wish I had started listening to your Depeche Mode podcast a week ago because we are recording a big Depeche Mode episode today, and I'm trying to cram a lot of your episodes into my brain before 1 p.m. Most of our episodes are just focused on one song at a time, and it's loose and silly, but every now and then we do a big episode focusing on many songs from one band or person. We did that with Elvis and Phil Spector and such. Because Depeche Mode is my favorite band, I wanted to do the same thing for them, and I'm finding it stressful to cram all of my love and all of their albums into one episode. I was feeling guilt about how the bulk of my love comes from only 3 of their albums, but then hearing you refer to those same 3 albums as the Holy Trinity, and I realized, I think most who loves Depeche Mode feels this way, has given me a lot of relief in how I want to structure my episode today. A new fan of your podcast, and I hope you'll listen to our episode when it comes out and share any feelings. I absolutely will. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of hoping I'm going to go for a bike ride when I'm done recording this and my Star Wars podcast, so that would be a perfect thing to listen to. You can find it on socials, YouTube, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. So again, for those that are curious, it's Rock the Cash Bar. I know they follow me on Instagram. I haven't been on Instagram all day. I just saw the notification. And I'm definitely going to check that out. I'm sorry, I got distracted because Museo, M-U-S-E-O, Museo Depeche Mode, fantastic follow on Twitter, by the way. They just tweeted out, I'm just curious, oh man, they deleted it. Hold on. Typically, they go and repost it. Let's see. Oh, they didn't. All right, fine. They had tweeted something out about Billie Eilish in Depeche Mode, and then they just deleted it, so I have no idea why. So let me give you an example, though. I happen to be on the Museo Depeche Mode Twitter page. So they have a list here. 10 of the sauciest songs about sex. Coming in at number 7, they had World in My Eyes. Favorite remixes, another tweet they have. Top 3, they say I Feel You, Babylon Mix, Useless, the Kruder and Dorfmeister session, and Barrel of a Gun, the Underworld Soft Mix. Boy, that brings back memories. So again, that's a good follow. But apparently they deleted the tweet about Billie Eilish. So, all right. Back to the listener feedback. Thank you, Diane. I'm definitely going to check out Rock the Cash Bar once I wrap up the show. All right. Now, let us go to Michael from Charlotte. Been listening to your podcast for a couple of years now. Every time somebody says that, by the way, I always forget that I've been doing the show that long. Thanks for all the hard work and research you do. Thank you for that. Everybody always says that. It's like it really, I don't know. I don't put a ton of research into it. It's all just top of mind stuff. If you call listening to a lot of Depeche Mode research, then yeah, I enjoy consuming as much as I can. I'm 51. I've been a hardcore fan of DM since high school. I saw them live first on June 23rd, 1990 in Cincinnati, just after graduation. What a great gift it was for me. It was my first concert ever. Wow. Nights of Reb opened. Been a fan of them, too, ever since. Me, too. I've seen many concerts since, even went to a devotional tour show by myself. That was an ethereal experience. Yeah, I went to, actually, several shows by myself. Several of the tours I did. Let's see, Playing the Angel, Sounds of the Universe, and Delta Machine. And Spirit. Yeah, I basically been to all the shows by myself. Well, the Global Spirit Tour, my fellow listener Jon Justice, what's up, John? John. He was there as well, so I wasn't alone, but I did go there by myself. Let's see. The Thunder and Silk screens at the beginning of the Devotional Tours show still gives me goosebumps. I will be seeing them in October in Atlanta. My wife and girls, 16 and 13, want to go too. Not huge fans, but they're learning. I have to say ticket prices are still a bit, yeah, they are. Hope the band get a good chunk of it, but I doubt it. I think it would be awesome, but a bit sad if they had a lone keyboard not being played by anyone on stage for Andy. I'm really going to miss him doing his walking side by side while clapping thing during the concert. I'm not huge into a lot of music, so DM is a huge part of what I listen to. Having a new album has reignited my passion for all of their music. I can attach each new album they've released to a certain stage in my life. Yeah, I think most of us do that. It's funny how our minds bring us back to specific points in time when we hear a familiar song. Yeah, sometimes it can be good, and sometimes that can be bad. I know that's the case for Playing the Angel for me. Playing the Angel came out in a time in my life that wasn't all that great, and I've had difficulty listening to that album for that reason. I need to spend like a lot of time with it to sort of erase that vibe that I get from it, where most of the other albums I'm cool with. Thank you, Michael, for the email and the kind words. I really appreciate it. I want to make a quick comment. He was talking about having there be a single keyboard, a keyboard by itself in honor of Fletch, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about that. I know for me personally, I can relate on a certain level. For those that have been listening to the shows, going back to at least last year, you know that shortly after Fletch died, my best friend and the guy that I hosted the show with, Andrew, passed away when I was in the hospital for my third open heart surgery. And I still have to go into the studio every day to do my show. And so I think about him every day when I go into the studio, and had to make changes to where I sat and as I took over the show solo, something that I was used to from hosting solo shows until we got together some 6 years ago. But I know for me that I have to sort of cut myself off from those memories. It's how I personally deal with things. I'll never forget him. He was my best friend, and probably next to my wife, one of the people that knew me the best between my wife and my parents. Probably better than my parents because I was spending more time with him than I was them. But for me, I know that to have a constant reminder there would be difficult, and so I wonder if the band had to figure out their own way to move forward going out on tour without Fletch for the first time. So just again, wanted to share my thoughts on that. All right. Zach Nair writes, with all the well-deserved love for Memento Mori, I also want to stick up for their post-ultra output. And this is a nice addition to what Diane was writing. While I call those albums sort of the trinity between music for the masses and Violator and Songs of Faith and Devotion, I know that kind of shifts for a lot of people. Black Celebration and Ultra, bookending those, and I think people would kind of shift around their favorite albums. I also do love all the albums for various reasons after that as well, and I wanted to make sure I said that before moving forward, and based off of what Diane said, because I celebrate their whole album and it's their whole catalog, and I'll be honest, over the past 10 years, I probably listened to more of the albums post Ultra than I do the other albums. Not in total. If I'm going to listen to total albums, I'll go back to those classics, but certainly specific tracks from Ultra on. All right, back to Zach's email. Let's see. I've been a fan since 85-ish too. I went to the fabled Masses Rose Bowl and the Violator Dodger Stadium shows, and have never been disappointed by any of their output. I was saddened when Alan left, but very grateful that Mode were still putting out quality work and tours. Me too. I never felt the need to compare one album or era to another, and have always appreciated that the Mode marched to their own drum. The fans that I'd interact with, the critical reactions to the latest albums, by the way, all of their post-Wilder output gets generally favorable reviews. I definitely encourage people to read the AllMusic and Ned Raggett reviews. That guy knows his Mode. And the celebratory feel around each tour. I always thought fans had a Mode have new material and I can see them live again, hell yeah attitude. Prior to maybe Delta Machine. I've never read online forums, probably a good thing, given some of the ridicule-worthy knobs that leave comments and make me want to physically harm them for being such disrespectful, snarky, unappreciative, lame asses. Sorry, someone has to. So I was unaware that there were even fans operating from such a hypercritical place. Some DM fans seem to place such unreasonable expectations on new material, and I have to get so annoyingly nerdy about every musical decision. They don't just let the music breathe and work its magic. I also feel like certain electronic fans tend to be very close-minded regarding when an artist does it in studio or live, and for me, DM have never been a traditional electronic band like, say, Erasure, Pet Shop Boys, or OMD. That's interesting. Some of these electronic nerds seem to have trouble reconciling that. But whatever, I'm glad I enjoy everything the band has done and look forward to where they go next. I also love all the side projects, whether it be Soul Savers, Recoil, or VCMG. Thank you for the great work and sharing your heart and soul, putting your bodies on the line for us, DM. It is much appreciated. I'm with you on VCMG and Recoil. I haven't talked about it much in the show. I should spend some time on that someday. Never got into Soul Savers. Now, granted, I will be honest, I never really attempted to get into Soul Savers. I think I gave a listen to some of the tracks, and they just weren't doing it for me. And it could be just that style of music. It just didn't grab me. I remember looking forward to hearing Imposters, but then just not being all that thrilled by songs that I wasn't familiar with. So it's like I was hearing new music, and now I'm hearing new music because these songs I'm not familiar with and they're cover versions of other band songs. So it just didn't really do it for me. And the same thing, to a certain extent, rings true when it comes to their solo work. I like some of Dave and Martin's solo stuff, but it's never really anything that I really gravitate towards to listen to. It really has to be like, I really got to think about it. It's like, oh, okay, I'll go listen to Paper Monsters, or, I'll go listen to Hourglass, or, or Counterfeit 1 and 2. But they're not things that you'll find much on my compilation playlists. All right. But again, it's all subjective, and that's just me personally. Melissa writes, I'm always Googling Martin's clothes, too. I searched just the other day for bondage pants and found a bunch of vampire freaks, but they're a lot more decked out, not quite the same thing. Yeah, I still haven't been able to find Martin Gore's pants. Not doing a good job with that. All right, friend of the show, Jason, writes in, as DM usually do the arena shows in winter in the UK, it's cold and usually wet, so not the weather for an old tour t-shirt, talking about what to wear. So it's usually jeans, boots, and a black shirt and coat. I can't remember the last time I bought or wore a tour t-shirt, possibly touring the Angel when they were still sensibly priced. Since then, they've been too expensive for my liking to just leave hanging up in the wardrobe as a tour souvenir. Plus, I've not really liked any of the shirts on the last few tours, apart from maybe the Red Stripe and the Spirit shirts from the last tour. Yeah, I have a black sort of album cover version of the Spirit tour shirt that I like quite a bit. I like the skull artwork. I mean, this kind of goes back to my comment about the wanting some specific cover art. I really am digging the skull artwork and the visuals that Anton used for Enjoy the Silence on the tour. I know Rob during the drinking chat last week was wearing a skull shirt, and I was thinking, it's probably what I'm going to gravitate towards when I see them with my buddy Matthew, who also joined us on the drinking chat last week. That was cool to see. That's probably going to be one of the items that I'll end up purchasing. Jason goes on to say, but I do always buy a tour program, which begs the question, will there be one on this tour? Or is it a cunning ploy to get you to buy a more expensive t-shirt as a souvenir instead? I have a program from each UK tour I've been to, starting with Black Celebration, including the Music for the Masses US version, and my signed Music for the Masses UK version, and the Songs of Faith and Devotion Exotic Tour. Although I didn't go to the tour, a pristine Some Great Reward program I picked up from a great independent record store, so it would be nice to continue with the collection. Regards, Jason. Yeah, and we've talked about that on the show. It'll be interesting to see when the European tour kicks off if they end up having a program for that tour. I don't have one for Music for the Masses. I do have a tour program for World Violation, Songs of Faith and Devotion. Didn't get one for Ultra because I didn't do an Ultra tour. Do have one for the singles tour. Do have one. Did I or did I not get one for? I did not get one for Sounds of the Universe, and I didn't get one for touring the Angel, but I did get one for Delta Machine, but I didn't get one for Spirit. Yeah, so I did not keep up with that. I was not a very good tour collector. I do have both for the Songs of Faith and Devotion tour, though. This is one of those moments where I forgot I was doing a podcast, like I was just thinking out loud. So, all right, keeping it relatively short this week. I got a lot going on today, so didn't have time to make a longer one, but I wanted to make sure that I got one out, especially for the remixes, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Listen, overall, I'm just going to kind of go, The album's so good. The album's so good that the remixes can just be remixes. There wasn't anything on there that really knocked me off my feet. I'm dying to hear those 4 unreleased tracks just because I love Memento Mori so much that I'm just really curious what songs didn't make it on the album, and wondering if we're in another dangerous Sea of Sin happiest girl situation, because those 3 tracks from the time of Violator, and even going into Songs of Faith and Devotion, when you look at My Joy, I mean, those B-sides were really good, and in my opinion could have ended up on the album. So I'm dying to hear those 4 songs. But Beggars Can't Be Choosers, I'm just thankful that we have a new Depeche Mode record that we can still enjoy. So, all right, that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for checking it out. I'm playing the outro music. I have no idea why it's not playing. That's really odd. And none of them are, okay, I don't know what's, oh wait, hold on. That's why. See, this is what happens when I record the show live and I don't want to go back and do any edits. There's a little headphone graphic that needs to be widget that needs to be pressed, because if it's not pressed, then you don't hear anything. See, like that. See, if I press it, see, now you hear it. All right, you can all take back those comments of all the hard work and research. You can have them all back. I've just completely blown it at the end of this podcast. Thank you for checking it out. Thank you, as always, for emailing. I got a lot of email I did not get to, but we will get to them on future shows. I hope wherever you are happy, you are healthy, and you are safe. If you want to support my nerd world and Depeche Mode, the podcast, and you read and you like sci-fi, go and check out my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK. It's available on Amazon.com. Kindle Unlimited free if you've got Kindle Unlimited, and at mynerdworld.net. So if you like science fiction and want to read a story about a guy who has to save humanity in the middle of a global evacuation that also happens to be a Depeche Mode fan, it's true. You'll find that in my EMBARK series. 7 books at all, available in ebook, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. Again, Amazon.com and mynerdworld.net. All right, back again next week. May the 4th be with you. Enjoy listening to your mode. We'll talk to you then. Bye.